Hello. Uh, International trading class. Uh, we're gonna start with diagram explanations. The diagram of letter of credit. In our previous class, I have expressed that the uh, letter of credit is one way uh, used for international trading payment method because long distance and no acquaintance, uh, sometimes completely, not sometimes, I guess the most of trading happen between quiet strangers, parties. Seller and buyer used to be, a known person. But because of this kind of, payment method called letter of credit, briefly we call this one LC, international trade can be, facilitated. So, as a beginner, starting, international trading, this is necessary. Okay, this is necessary procedure to know the payment. The payment is most, critical and crucial. Also, this is, basic knowledge once you jump into the international trading. So this time I'm going to give you explanations how this payment method works with the diagram and with the explanations right down below the picture, right? For your easy understanding. Okay, on the basis of previous lecture, I express and emphasize the letter of credit was, divided, and it is some, very effective and useful payment method designed by bank because the bank can provide both parties in trading. The both parties, seller and buyer, okay? Because usually the two parties, seller and buyer, do not have any credit each other because they have no any previous relationship, okay? But even though they don't have a previous relationship or they don't have any acquaintance or they don't have any nothing, okay? If even nothing between them, as sorry, the bank intervene as a liaison between two parties, they can share, okay? They can share the credit through bank, okay? So I express this one. This is one pact, okay, which makes this trade make a successful, even though the two parties do not have any previous relationship. Okay, then according to the number described in illustrations, our add, okay, additional explanations in English instead of Korean written down, and I think it will be very helpful for you to understanding the whole diagram, how letter of credits works, okay? Okay, then let's go. Number one, okay? Okay, we have a beneficiary. Beneficiary is a seller. Okay, seller. I told you it is a seller. Okay, beneficiary is a seller. Okay, and we have a buyer here. The buyer who want to purchase product. He want for the material for his production procedure, right? But between them, we have no credit because they have no relationship people. Okay, so the credit is a critical factor to make these two parties complete, the contract and trading, even they are completely unknown people. Okay, at this state, because as I told you in previous time, the seller do not believe buyer for what? Release his product in advance prior to payment. Okay. Also, on the contrary, this guy buyer do not believe, this seller because for what? But, whether he will faithful, after he received, product. So he's wondering whether I should have to pay or no, I should have to send, I should have to pay in advance prior to collecting, product. Okay, these two parties' worry is the same. And also, that worry is the barrier between two parties for the international trading. Okay, so to complete this contract, we should eliminate what? Disbelief and give them reliance. Okay, and belief. Okay, at this point, bank intervene as a reason connecting two parties. Okay, and the bank suggests that, okay, hey seller, okay, don't worry collecting payment. I will give you payment in advance. Okay, on behalf of buyer. Okay, but you should keep the rule of this letter of credit. Then the seller asks, what is the rule? The rule is very simple, but sometimes it's very strict. Okay, sometimes simple but very strict. What? Okay, the buyer now will open the letter of credit. This is one of method to paying for the product. Okay, but you should follow up his request as punctual as possible. Okay, as punctual as possible, meaning that to collecting money from bank, okay, from bank gonna be a liaison between buyer and seller. Okay, so bank will pay for product in advance instead of whom? Instead of applicant, instead of buyer. Okay, but seller should follow up strictly the request of buyer. What request? Request written in letter of credit. Understand? Okay. For the seller to receive the money from bank, this seller should follow up exactly the documentations the buyer, the applicant requested. Okay, if this seller cannot follow up the request of the buyer, his claim for payment will be rejected. Okay? Will be rejected. This is basic principle of the letter of credit. Okay? Letter of credit. Okay? Okay. This is basic. Okay? So you should keep in mind this basic diagram and principle, and I will give you explanations how it works. Okay? Okay, no problem. Okay, now number one is make contract. Okay, make a contract, but make a contract between number one is make contract between two parties. Okay, seller and buyer, right? Okay, but they have to decide what? They have to decide how payment. Okay, but they have to specify the payment method. Okay, the payment method. Understand? Okay. They have to decide the payment method. Okay. So they decided by LC, letter of credit. Okay. LC is initial, and this full name is letter of credit. Okay. Letter of credit. Okay. In this term, the credit is the liability. Okay. Credit is liability and belief between two parties. Two parties whom? The two parties are seller and buyer. But the problem is sometimes or usually these two parties, trading parties, do not have, any relationship. Maybe mostly, okay? In this circumstance and in this status, they cannot proceed, they cannot proceed what? They cannot proceed, okay, but two parties do not have any previous relationship. So they do not have any credit between them. Okay? Okay. So someone has to help in this circumstance. Okay? To help to make them, complete the contract and proceed, this, trading with what? By providing credit to each parties. Okay? So the bank, someone need to help them to complete contract, right? And let them proceed trading, international trading. Proceed international trading, right? By what? By how? By providing credit to each parties. Okay? Okay. So bank as an intermediary, bank as intermediary, okay? As intermediary, okay? Play a role to connect two parties, right? Okay. So, how? Then how? How? Okay, then bank will guarantee. Okay, what? Bank will guarantee payment to seller, okay, instead of buyer, right? Understand? Instead of buyer, okay. Also, instead of buyer, also bank guarantee to correcting to claim to claim, you know, cargo for buyer. Okay? Okay. Then if this can be implemented, if this role of bank can be implemented. Okay? What? Implemented what? What? The guarantee two factors, two aspects to guarantee. Number one, guarantee, paying seller. Number two, guarantee claiming, cargo for buyer, right? So the bank guarantee to seller pay for the payment for the product instead of a buyer. At the same time, bank guarantee to buyer to correcting cargo, okay, from seller. Okay. Then this is the general concept. Okay. This is the general concept of a letter of credit. Okay, then both party can accept letter of credit as a payment method. Okay, understand? Okay. This is general concepts. Okay. I'm sorry, it's a concept of letter of credit. So this makes letter of credit can be used as a international payment. Okay. The seller and the buyer has a basic concept to letter of credit, so they decide to accept this payment condition. Okay, understand? Okay. Number one is like that. Okay, good. Okay, next. Number two then. Okay, what is the next procedure? Number two. Okay, then number two, we can see that these two parties agreed to use the letter of credit as payment as international because the bank guarantees both parties concerned, right? Bank guarantees both parties concerned, so they are very relieved to know, using letter of credit can guarantee payment for the seller and guarantee correcting cargo for buyer by the role of bank, right? Okay. Number two, see that number two. So number one, we have completed. Okay. They have a agreement upon LC as a payment method. Okay. So they reached a mutual agreement, and then here number two, right? Number two is here. Number two is this is none other than the buyer, this guy buyer according to the contract agreed letter of credit, the applicant, the seller should open LC. Okay, the meaning of open LC is open LC means that both parties, seller and buyer, will ask bank, bank pay for cargo, the product, the commodity, whatever, which are supposed to be sent to buyer. The bank at the open LC meaning that buyer ask the bank paying for seller instead of him. Understand that? Okay, then we can describe number two process. The applicant, this applicant called the seller. Buyer. Import. Buyer. The buyer asks bank pay for instead of him or her to seller. This means open LC. Okay, the meaning of the meaning of opening LC is that applicant ask bank people instead of the seller. Okay, but we have conditions in this point, but in condition that seller prepare all the document requested by letter of credit. Okay. Number two, we have asked, the applicant asked open LC to whom? To issuing bank. Okay, opening bank or issuing bank. This means issuing bank or opening bank. Either way. Okay, we can call this bank the bank open LC is called issuing bank or opening bank, whatever. Okay, either way. Okay, then the applicant asks open LC. Okay, open LC, and the applicant should filling in documentation, application form, right? Application form. Okay, then applicant fill in application form of LC. Okay. For what? To open letter of credit on behalf of whom? By seller. Okay, on behalf of seller. Okay. Number two is the DAP process. Okay. Number three then. Number three. Let's see the number three. Okay. Let's see the procedure number three. Okay, we'll continue from number three. Okay.